Welcome back to this episode of Your Five-Letter Word. Today, we're going to be talking about something a little bit different, and that is why it is so difficult to experience sustainable, long-term changes in your communication and what you can do about it. So, without any delay, let's jump right in. Welcome to Your Five-Letter Word. I'm your host, Christina, and in each episode, we explore how intentional communication and a strong mindset can transform your business, your relationships, and your personal growth. Whether we're covering communication strategies or sharing tips to shift your mindset, this podcast will help you learn to create more meaningful conversations in your life so that you can deepen your relationships and grow your business. So sit back, relax, and soak in the insights as we dive into today's conversation. A lot of people would like to improve their communication skills, rightly so. Communication impacts us in every aspect of our life, whether we realize it or not. From the moment you wake up until you go to sleep, you are communicating with people. Quite literally talking to them. That might be in person, on the phone, virtually in meetings. You might be texting them, sending messages back and forth, voice notes. Now with social media, posting pictures, writing captions, sending videos, snaps, it goes on and on. We are speaking to people in so many different contexts every single day. And what ends up happening? We fall into habits. We begin speaking a specific way, and that becomes ingrained in us over and over and over. We say the same words, we use the same phrases, we tend to use similar sentences, we start to have a very consistent tone, we talk at a similar pace, on and on. Everything about the way that we talk becomes habitual. Now, here's why that's important to know. Habits take time to create. Habits also take time to break. And most importantly, habits become your default go-to behavior. Whatever you're used to doing, that's what you're going to continue doing. Now, why does that matter in communication? Because if you're stressed, if you're unprepared, if you're in an unfamiliar situation at work, you are going to default to the behaviors that are a habit for you. So if you are someone who feels like you talk way too fast, or you speak very monotone, or perhaps you speak in a way that isn't perceived as being confident, well, what's going to happen when you are stressed out in a meeting with someone you weren't expecting, or you get an unexpected phone call? You might fake being confident, you might fake some of the techniques that you are playing around with, but ultimately, when you fall into thinking, when the meeting's going on and you're running out of energy to keep up this facade, when you're not certain, you will always fall back into your habits, into the behaviors that you have trained yourself and conditioned yourself to do over and over and over again. That's a crucial point that I want you to understand, because whenever you go into the idea of wanting to improve your communication, which again is fantastic and phenomenal, and I'm all here for it, but you need to understand that whatever way you are communicating now is a habit. It is a behavior that you have been doing a very specific way for a long period of time. For most people, that's years, sometimes even decades, right? Imagine you are someone who had not gone to the gym or did not do a single workout for 5 years in a row. How hard would it be to then start going to the gym and start going to the gym consistently, right? The exact same situation is applying to you when you are wanting to change your communication skills. So really, fundamentally, you need to understand that this will take time, this will take effort, this will take practice, because you are breaking a habit that has been in place for an extremely long period of time, in most cases. When do we learn how to talk, right? We really learn how to talk in our toddler years, early grade years as well. So when we're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we start developing a very specific way of talking based on our environment, based on the way that our friends talk at school and in daycare, based on the way that our teachers educate us and train us to talk, based on the way that our parents talk, and more importantly, based on the way that our parents teach us to talk. All of these foundational habits in your childhood stay with you because you may experience, learning a little bit more about formal communication in school. You may be forced to learn formal communication at work, on the job, right? Why do so many people struggle with transitioning to a corporate space for the first time? And they don't understand the jargon and they don't understand the logistics and the nuances of speaking because it's not formally taught. It's a brand new language that people need to learn. It's the exact same thing with any form of communication. So fundamentally understand that it is a brand new skill. So even if you are someone who feels like they're an amazing communicator, keep in mind that breaking a habit takes time and is hard. And, in most cases, you're not an exception. Breaking a habit is hard. Breaking a habit takes time, and you are not an exception to this. Okay? So most people do not experience massive, sustainable transformation overnight. Okay? Sustainable is key here because you can experience transformation in a short amount of time. But it's in those moments where you're stressed or you're thinking and you fall back on old habits that the transformation you experience will be gone and the old habit will take over. Okay? So what happens? When you realize that you want to improve your communication skills, when you start learning all the things that you need to learn to improve, you get to a place where you understand that the things that you were doing previously are not good enough for you anymore. The things that you were doing previously will not get you the results that you want. And so you can't go back to them because you understand that continuing to do them is fruitless. Continuing to do them the way that you used to will ultimately lead to failure by your standards because it won't lead you to the results that you want. So ultimately, when you decide that you want to improve your communication skills and you start improving, you get to this awkward middle gray area place where you can't go back because now you know it's not good enough. But you're not good enough to go forward and meet your goals yet because you haven't broken those habits and you haven't put new habits into place yet. And being in that gray area is hard on its own because it's hard to break a habit, it's hard to change, and it's hard to build new habits. So really, knowing that this is going to happen and knowing that this is the process that you will go through is so important because it stops you from giving up. If you knew that you had to take your car to the mechanic and perhaps change your tires or get an oil change or get your engine fixed, and you knew that it would take, let's say, a few days and your car had to be in the shop, that would suck. And not having your car for several days would be very inconvenient. But you would still do it because you know that the outcome is worth it. You know that going through, dropping off your car, dealing with the inconveniences, but then picking up your fixed car is worth it. It's the exact same thing with your communication. When you go into wanting to improve yourself, understanding that it will take time and understanding that it will be inconvenient and uncomfortable, then you know that the outcome will still be worth it and you keep yourself motivated and accountable to continue through that gray area. Okay? So when you're in that gray area, right? So let's back up for a second. Let's say you're someone who, let's say you're a manager at work. You have a team of 4 people and you've been told that you're being passed up for promotion, maybe the second or the third time in a year because you're not able to articulate yourself well enough at work. You're not able to speak with confidence in a way that makes an impact on the other leaders, right? You're being overlooked, not for your skills, but because of the way that you speak. So what do? Naturally, you want to improve. You want to improve the way that you speak. So what do? You dive into the world of communication development. Maybe you realize that you need to speak with more confidence, so you need to up your volume. So now you start working on your volume. Maybe you realize that you're rambling and you're talking in circles and you're not able to speak quite literally concisely and clearly for people to even understand what the heck you're trying to say. So now you're working on your volume as well as speaking concisely. Already, that's a lot to do. Then you realize, okay, your body language is not ideal. Perhaps you're slouching. Perhaps you're, using closed body language and really you're just not coming off as confident based on the way you look. So now you're working on your body language, your volume, and speaking concisely. All right, you have a game plan. You go into it. You start trying to speak with more volume, but it feels like you're yelling and it feels really uncomfortable and you feel really odd doing it. So you want to stop. You work on your body language and you sit there confidently, but as the meeting goes on, your back starts to hurt and you get tired and you end up slouching anyway. You try to speak concisely, but you're not sure if your point is being made. So you start speaking in circles and rambling the way that you're used to, and then you panic and it continues. So what do? You're in that gray area. You can't go back and just forget about the idea of communication development because now you know better. Because now you know that these are the exact things holding you back. It sucks to be in that position because changing yourself is hard. Because working on those things and building up the muscle of being able to speak loudly consistently until the end of your sentence, being able to maintain your body language, at least while it's your turn to speak on camera or in person. Speaking concisely and still confidently delivering the main points that you had in your mind without rambling and talking in circles. All these things will take time and experience. And so when you understand that your promotion, your potential promotion depends on you developing these skills, well, that's usually motivation enough to continue. So when you find yourself in that gray area, really understand that that is a completely normal part of the process. Just like if you were someone training for a marathon and you had never ran before, or you haven't run since high school gym class, you would not expect yourself to be able to run, let's say, a 5K marathon in 15 days or 20 days, maybe even 30 days. You would be okay with the fact that it will take time to get there. And not only the fact that it will take time to get there, but that you will be sore along the way. That you may need to buy running shoes and gym clothes and a water bottle and maybe a fitness tracker to be able to sustain your progress and keep yourself accountable. You would be okay with that. You might get an accountability partner, a running buddy, someone to train with, and you would be okay with that. You would know that there are good days, bad days, and rest days, and you would be okay with that because fundamentally you understand that's part of the process of training for a marathon. Take that same concept and apply it to your communication development. Understand that it will take time. You will need to practice. You will have good days. You will have bad days. You will have days where you just don't want to do it, and you'll use that as a rest day. You may need to have an accountability partner, someone in your family, someone at work, perhaps a coach or a mentor, someone in your community, someone to make sure that you're staying on track and to give you feedback on how you're doing, because we are very self-critical of ourselves, especially when we are trying to improve something. And that is okay because that is part of the process. But when you know that it's part of the process, it makes being in the process itself so much easier and so much more bearable. And that's what you need to understand if you want long-term, sustainable change in the way that you communicate and in anything really, so that you experience the change and that others start to see it as well. So going back to our example, as you're working on your volume, as you're working on your body language, as you're working on speaking concisely, it will be hard. Some days you'll feel like you failed. Some days you'll feel like you crushed it. But when you understand that breaking a habit takes time, when you understand that forming a new habit takes time, you stick to the process. So quite literally, in our brains, there are neural pathways and connections that get formed when we perform a specific action. So any behavior that we have, there's neural connections in our brain. The more that we do a behavior, the more that we do the same thing consistently, the stronger those connections get. And that's what forms habits. And the stronger that it gets, the easier it gets for us to do it. Now, this is important because going back to the idea of you have been speaking a very specific way for a very long time. Therefore, the neural connections in your brain are formed and are strong. So now, as you're working on improving your communication skills, now, not only are you in the process of stopping this behavior, so if you're someone who spoke quietly and now you're speaking loudly all the time, you're not speaking quietly, which means that you are trying to slowly break those connections, weaken them so that they go away. At the same time, while you are trying to completely break this very strong connection, you are trying to build a new one. So as you're practicing, as you're, putting in the reps and trying to speak loudly again and again and again, you are slowly building this new connection. These are two very different processes that you're trying to do at the exact same time. You're breaking one connection while forming a new one that you think will serve you better. So give yourself credit. Hang in the process. Commit to the change and the transformation that you want to see within yourself, because it will take time. And when you understand that, you stop looking at that big goal, that promotion that you're doing it for, and you start tracking the small changes. You start noticing that, hey, today it was easier for me to speak louder for the majority of the meeting. Sure, there were moments where I spoke a little bit quieter or softer, especially when I was uncertain, but I'm catching that. I'm becoming aware of it. That means I'm improving. When you start celebrating the progress and the small wins, that's when you start winning. That's when you are reinforcing this new connection and making it stronger, giving yourself that dopamine hit of success of, I did this well today. And that will continue to motivate you to break the old habits. Okay? Before you know it, you will get to your goal. But you cannot go from where you're starting to what your goal is without going through the transformation, the process, and the gray area. So if you're someone who wants to try this out on their own, I personally love the DIY approach. If you are looking to improve your communication skills and you just want to try it on your own at home without too much commitment, check out my Intentional Communication Mastery course. I'll link it down below for you. It's got several modules and hours of video that teaches you specifically how to speak like a leader with confidence and impact at work. So check that out if you're interested. Okay. So understanding that this will take time and this is a process and this is a normal part of the process will completely change the way that you approach developing your communication skills. All right, so as we wrap up for today, my 5-letter word for you is messy. Okay, messy. The process of change is messy. The process of realizing that you need to change is messy and uncomfortable. And a lot of people feel really discouraged knowing that transformation takes time. So I'm going to challenge that thought for you. 6 months are going to go by. 6 months are going to go by. 6 months from now, when you're up for another performance review at work, what do you want to happen? Do you want to look back on the past 6 months and say, you know what, change was too hard. Therefore, I agree with you that I'm still not performing well. I'm still not speaking confidently. I'm still not articulating myself. Maybe next year? Or do you want to be there at that performance review 6 months from now saying, hey, look at the way I'm showing up in meetings. Look at the way I'm speaking to the other leaders, to the other teams, to the other managers. Look at the way that I'm showing up and making a difference. Look at the way that my work is now being perceived because I'm able to speak about it confidently and clearly. Look at the changes that I have made that justify this promotion. Look at the way that I'm able to lead my team and not just work technically on the things that I need to. 6 months are going to go by. A year is going to go by. Do you want to be in the exact same place that you are now? The choice is yours. But change is messy. So when you embrace that process and you look forward to it, you can just dive right in and do what you need to do and go through that messy gray area and come out the other side so much better and so much further along than you are now. But ultimately, the choice is yours, so I'll leave it with you. Let me know if you had any major breakthroughs. If you need any additional support, reach out, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Your 5-Letter Word. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And as always, I love to hear about your breakthroughs. I'm here to serve your soul a cup of peace and a slice of joy. Until next time, take care.